Okay, so initially when agents came along, people thought they'd be widespread into production really quickly, but the problem is that they often miss information. This leads to hallucination and just overall lacking business value. So what we have to realize about LLMs is that they have a fixed training data window for time, and they still are trained to predict the next word and finish the sentence. So without the right context, it will hallucinate. And what we've learned is that an LLM with the best context and the best data wins. So internal RAG, what we've seen is not necessarily 100% coverage. You're bound to get a question that your agent might not have the data to back up. And where do you look from here? And at Tavily, our answer to that is web search. The web provides a nearly unlimited amount of data, and this can fill knowledge gaps for agents when your internal data does not have the right answers. And Tavily allows developers to build a bridge between their applications, the questions that they might see within their agents, and the web that may have the answers and will have the answers. We retrieve the most relevant sources, extract the most relevant content from that page, context engineered to that moment in time in the query, so you get the most relevant chunks from the page, what's important for your agent to see. And we're essentially enabling some sort of RAG on the web. And what we recommend is caching the results that you get from us. This way you can build your internal knowledge base, as well as feeding this back in as context to your agent for future prompting. And what happens from this is now you have agents that you can rely on that don't hallucinate and essentially know everything. And this allows you to also take the data, like I said, and generate this knowledge base, which has huge effects on huge benefits for cost and speed for the future of your agents and research. And this is an internal use case we've built with Tavily, which is a data collection application strictly using web data. So how the pipeline works is you conduct targeted searches, use the content field that we give back as well as the scoring to determine what is relevant. Then you would do an extract or a crawl to find more data on these high value web pages. You would aggregate all of the quality data from these sites into a data set. And then maybe you want to embed the content snippets and the title for RAG and into your knowledge base, or maybe you want to use it for training a model. But some key thing to realize is that we continuously are refreshing these data sets if you're pulling them in. So now all of your models, your knowledge bases are completely up to date. You have real-time information, and you're not missing anything that your agents need to know. And at Tavily, we work really closely with our customers, so we've seen some pain points and struggles that they've had building out these systems. For example, we built a sales research agent with a large multinational tech company. And what the goal of this was to provide sellers with the most actionable, relevant info and answer any questions that they might have. And what we have to realize is it has to be in-depth and it can't miss any information, because any missed information can lead to a lost deal, and which is lost revenue for the company. And what wasn't working for them that we saw was that their internal data was limited. So if it's asking a question to the chatbot or to the agent, it's not necessarily coming up with a grounded answer. Maybe it's hallucinating the answer along that way. Also, there was a lack of context engineering, and there was no idea of when not to update sellers, because sometimes there is no actionable info. And how we made this work was with one, enabling web access. So now they have access to not just internal, but the web along with it, and configuring kind of sub-agents for sub-research tasks. Maybe one does research on the news, one looks at financial data and packages that all in together. Another one is context engineering, where part of it's baked into Tavily, where we're finding the most relevant sources, extracting the most relevant details from that page, but as well in your whole agent flow, you don't want the whole context window to be overwhelmed, and you should be purging irrelevant data and noise from that answer so we don't get this sort of context solution. Another part was knowing when there was nothing to find. And the result of this is your sellers have access to all the knowledge. They save time doing all the research and just a more informed sales team. And to get into the architecture a little bit of it, you see the first check is check for updates to see a general signal before going into deeper research about it, to know, do we want to waste the tokens on this? Do we want to waste their sellers' time? And then we go into this iterative tool calling loop using the Tavily tools, where we then find the relevant information, still flagging for when it's not relevant and we haven't found any signals. And when we do, we write the report, we update the sellers. And we feed the results that we get from the Tavily API tool calling loop. The most relevant ones will go into our knowledge base, which will then get subsequently fed back into our kind of thinking loop, because this will provide a full context for our next iteration. And some of the main takeaways to realize for this is that agents can't have knowledge gaps in the specific domains that you're deploying them for. And our answer to this is that you can use web access. And it's important that what's in the context window of these agents is full, it covers all the details, and it's not polluted with noise and things that aren't as relevant. Thank you.